Welcome to Writer Reading for May 2026, Zombie Survival Awareness Month. This month I will be reading the chapters of How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse. How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse, Chapter 4. Friday morning. Driving to the grocery market in the library's electric car felt like she was taking advantage, but the rain from a dying hurricane was trying to drown Baltimore. Babs also wanted the cookies she made for Bill to stay warm. They were moving slowly into dating, and it felt wonderful. She had never really dated anyone. He was hopeful there would be a lifting of the restrictions soon, with the new vaccine due in the fall. Both wore their mask and gloves as he loaded her car and accepted the Tupperware container of cookies, and one with pasta, chicken, and broccoli. I called the Asian market, and Mrs. Tran said they had noodles without that yeast stuff. Bill, it wasn't your fault. I didn't know either. I was having a really nice evening until I almost died. She teased with a giggle, and he laughed in relief. It was. That's it. Thank you for the audiobook recommendations, Bill said, as his eyes crinkled with smile lines above his mask. I never thought I would use a library after I graduated from high school, because I don't read books. I'm glad you like them. Audiobooks count as reading, too. It's just someone else reading them to you, she reminded him. I like it when you read to me over the phone. His voice grinned at her. I like it too. Thanks for finding noodles I can eat. I'll stop at the Asian market on the way back. She started to say more, but two cars were waiting, and one honked, so she asked, Chapter 11 tonight? Don't you have to work at the pharmacy? Bill asked. No, they're no longer doing overnights, so I will be home until the restrictions lift again. Babs shrugged, glancing at the car as it honked a second time. The man inside was coughing violently. I'll call you tonight. Bill nodded, then hurried toward to get the grumpy man's order. A few blocks away, Babette parked in front of the Asian market. Going inside, she waved at Mrs. Tran behind the plexiglass screen. How are you today? I'm well. And you? Mrs. Tran asked as she went into the back and came out with 3 bags for Babette instead of her usual one. Bill called from Lurling's and say they no longer have ramen you can eat. I do not know what is wrong with these producers. There is no yeast in ramen noodles or soba noodles. They're crazy. Pharaoh's yeast makes the noodles taste bad. Who wants to eat old noodles? Nobody. Fresh is best. The elderly lady ranted in her thick Filipino accent as she wrung out Babette's purchase. Babs was glad Mrs. Tran couldn't see the amused smile behind her mask and glasses as she tapped her card before she accepted the bags. Thanks again for having extra noodles for me. See you next week. Babs expressed her gratitude before she rushed out to her car through the rain. She drove back to the library and parked under the overhang out of the deluge. Carrying her groceries inside, she put them away, looking at the labels carefully to make sure her new allergy hadn't come home with her. She changed the list of safe foods in her notebook and on her phone. Grumbling under her breath, she went upstairs and got a few books on making noodles. She was grateful they hadn't started putting Pharaoh's yeast in the different kinds of flour yet. With no pickups or deliveries, She had the weekend to herself to learn how to make her own ramen and soba noodles. Other than calling Bill and reading a few chapters of a book aloud to him, she saw no one and spoke to no one until Monday afternoon, since Mrs. Pratt canceled their usual Sunday brunch and tea. Two weeks passed, the same as the previous two. The only change was the steady decrease in the numbers of patrons picking up books and the numbers of deliveries requested. After making her few deliveries and pickups, Babs walked through the library, checking the doors, or sweeping, or dusting. Without watching the news, she took her once-a-week morning walk to the George Peabody Library. She was sad to find it closed indefinitely. Washington Monument Park was empty, and so was Preston Gardens Park. There was no traffic on the Jones Fall Expressway. As she walked back to the Enoch Pratt Library, she worried about how Bill missed several of her recent calls. She worried he was overworking himself, since he told her he was the only one left pulling and loading out orders. She called his personal number instead of the store. "Hello, hun." It sounded like he muted the phone, and she guessed he was busy. "Hey, I was going to bring you lunch when I pick up my order today," Babs answered. His voice was gruff as he cleared his throat. "That would be great." His phone was silent for almost a minute before he insisted. "I'm starving for your wonderful cooking. See you soon." He hung up before she could respond. Shaking her head, she thought about last week and scowled, thinking the store better be paying him overtime. She made him a large bowl of his favorite hot and sour soup, with a side of fried noodles and pot stickers. The recipes she learned from her aunt's best friend growing up in California were his favorite. She also made cookies. After packing them in containers, she went to get her grocery order. The store was depressingly dark in the front as she pulled to the pickup area around the side. She dialed the number and got out, waiting anxiously. Bill came out and held up his hand to her when she started to approach him. "Don't. I think I caught whatever is going around." Pandemic 5 seemed to be as contagious as the first pandemic had been, but that was a coronavirus, and this one seemed to be some yet unidentified infection. Babs looked at him in fear as he pulled the wagon to the back of her car. He sprayed it with disinfectant and then stepped back. Babs kept the car between them, leaving his meal and pastries on the hood. "I made your favorite soup and pot stickers and fried noodles. There's also some sesame candy ginger cookies. Mrs. Tran gave me the recipe for those." "Thank you, hun." He coughed wetly into his mask with his hand over it. "This will get me back on my feet." She quickly put the groceries in, looking surprised at the number of bags. "Why are there so many?" "I pulled 2 weeks for you. Do you mind delivering Mrs. Pratt's and Mrs. Thorpe's again?" "No problem. You just sit down and eat. I'll get them." She followed him inside but kept her distance. Her fear warred with her need to take care of him. As he sat at the desk, coughing and sipping the soup, she put Mrs. Pratt's in order in her little coupe. "Bill, I need to come back for Mrs. Thorpe's and her cat supplies." "I'm sorry to ask. I know you're allergic." "It's okay. I have to take her a dozen books anyway. I'll come back and I'll take you to the hospital. You need to see a doctor, she insisted worriedly as he blew dark mucus from his nose. There aren't any more doctors, Bill muttered. Please, Bill, you're sick. You need someone to take care of you, Babs begged. He looked at her and then glanced at the blue card on the desk before turning to face her. I love you. I just wanted to tell you I wish I had been able to take you out on proper dates and introduce you to my family. You have made me so happy these last few months. Oh, Bill! Bab's words caught in her throat. She stepped forward, but he held up his hand as he started coughing violently. She bit her lip and then straightened her spine. Don't do anything more. I'll be back from Mrs. Thorpe's groceries and stuff, and then I am taking you to the hospital. Don't argue with me. She glared at him as he started to protest. I love you too. Eat your lunch. I'll be back as quick as I can. The thoughts of her father dying alone clawed at her. If you start to feel worse before I get back, call an ambulance and call me from the hospital. We'll get through this. She almost sobbed as she rushed out. Speeding back to the library, she stopped at Mrs. Pratt's stoop. She knocked, then unlocked the door and put the groceries and book delivery inside. Babette. Oh, thank you. What's wrong? Matilda asked, but kept her distance. Do you have any sanitizing spray with these? Bill's sick. Babette kept her mask and gloves on. I have to get back and take him to the hospital after I make his deliveries. Of course, hun. I'll spray them before I put them away. Go and be careful. Call me if you need anything, Babs responded as she closed the door and then the security door. She rushed to the library, ignoring a homeless man wandering nearby. Throwing her groceries on her table, she sprayed the bags and their contents before rushing back out, only to grab Mrs. Thorpe's books. She sped back to the marketplace and Lurling's grocery basket. Going in the rear door, she called out, Bill? Bill, I'm back! The store was eerily quiet. Mrs. Thorpe's order was exactly where he left it. On Bill's desk was a card with her name on it and his keys. It was the kind of romantic card one got on an anniversary, but his note meant more to her than the platitude. Dearest Babette, there are so many things I wished we could have done. I'm going to the hospital. I'll call you as soon as I'm better. Please lock the store behind you and feel free to come back and take what you need from the overhead later. Thank you for introducing me to the wonderful world of books and for all the nights you read me to sleep. I love you, Bill. Her containers were washed and smelled of sanitizer. Clutching the card to her chest, she breathed out in relief that he did what she wanted. Then she hurried to get Mrs. Thorpe's order loaded into her small car. She pulled the last of it from the freezer before she locked the door. Looking around, she noticed she was the only person in the marketplace parking lot. She put the Upper Fells address in her GPS and started driving. She had been to Mrs. Thorpe's every other week for over a year, but with the checkpoints, she knew she had to follow the pandemic route rules. While she drove, she saw a few homeless people wandering around. She was sad their clothes were dirty and wet, but she doubted any of the shelters were still open. As she drove down U.S. Highway 40, she noticed only a dozen cars on her side of the road waiting for the checkpoint. A coughing soldier waved her forward. paperwork, and destination. Upper Fells Point, I'm delivering groceries and books to a shut-in senior citizen? Babs shouted through the crack in the window. She pressed the grocery paperwork and her paperwork against the glass, showing she was an essential worker without opening it further. The soldier then nodded and coughed between every third word as he told her, "Stay at your destination when you get there. The no-travel curfew starts at noon, and this road will be closed. Anyone traveling will be arrested." "But I don't live there. I can't stay there because I'm—" She tried to explain about her allergies, but he wasn't having any of it. He coughed, then rasped out, "No exceptions. Looters will be shot. Curfew breakers will be arrested. Now go and stay there." Timidly she nodded as she rolled up the window the half-inch it was open. She sprayed the inside of her car and kept her mask on as she drove away from him, before she turned into the neighborhood. While she drove, she deliberated about taking the side streets to get back to the library because she couldn't make it from Mrs. Thorpe's before the curfew. If she wanted to go home, she would have to break the law. If she stayed at Mrs. Thorpe's, she would probably die of her cat allergy. Driving past a dozen identical brick brownstones on Pratt, she turned between a street light and a little tree and drove down the alley called Madeira, which served as a one-way street. Mrs. Thorpe insisted she lived here because it reminded her of England. All the homes lined up on either side of the street like terraced houses. Crossing Gough Street, she continued to Bank Street before she turned. Then she backed into the first space to park. Getting out, she glanced down the block at the empty Patterson Park. She went to the door and knocked, before going back and starting to unload. As Mrs. Thorpe opened the door, a dozen cats rushed out. They walked up and down the sidewalk like they were on patrol, sniffing and scratching at the neighbors' doors on both sides of the street. "Babette, how wonderful to see you! How are— Oh, and you have my groceries." "Yes, ma'am. Bill was sick and asked me to deliver them while he went to the hospital. Do you have sanitizing spray?" Babs asked. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't need stuff like that. I have my cats," Theodora insisted as she carried in one bag at a time while using her cane to walk. Babs kept her mask up as she carried bags of groceries, cat food, and buckets of kitty litter inside the elderly woman's home. When they were done, Babs wanted to go, but Mrs. Thorpe insisted, "Come inside for a cup of tea. We're having a bit of a cold spell, just enough to change the leaves. And I want to talk to you about the books you deliver and pick up so diligently." "I really need to get back and see if I can find Bill at the hospital." Babs could feel the itch in her throat from just being in the house entryway. "Why don't you text him and see how the doctors are coming along with him? You know you can't go to the hospital, so I'll put the kettle on while we wait to hear from him," Mrs. Thorpe insisted cheerily, but the frown on her brow as she turned away wasn't missed by Babette. Sighing, Babette shut the door behind her and pulled out her phone, texting Bill while eyeing all of the cats. "Have you seen the doctor yet?" He didn't answer immediately. "I'm at Mrs. Thorpe's with her delivery. I locked the store. She insists I stay for tea while we wait to hear from you, so text soon." "Please, The cat lady is holding me hostage. Help! Tucking her phone in her pocket, she sneezed several times in a row as two large brown cats rubbed against her legs. One had long hair and the other short fur. Mrs. Thorpe's head popped out of the kitchen. "Are you ill?" "Oh, no, Wolfman and Osiris are fine with you. I suppose it's just your allergies. If you get a cat to keep, eventually those will go away." A yellow tabby jumped into her arms. Babs clutched the cat, afraid to let it fall, then put it down quickly. "I'm fine. I can't have a cat in my apartment at the library." She didn't want to have the same disagreement with the elderly professor again. The woman was obsessed with cats, and if the term crazy cat lady applied to anyone Babs had ever met, it was Lady Dr. Theodora Carnarvon Thorpe. Sitting in the parlor, Babs resisted the urge to claw at her itching skin and eyes. She regretted wearing her contacts today. "You have such a nice home." Lifting her mask to sip Earl Grey tea while surrounded by cats, her eyes watered. Babs commented, "The style is so modern. It looks like the kitchen has all the newer amenities." She felt a piece of fur on the tip of her tongue, but there was nothing she could do about it without lifting her mask again. "Oh, the cats love the underfloor laminate heating. It is so much easier to clean than carpet." As a sweep bot moved across the floor of the hall, Theodora laughed. "Or for the gadgets Lenny loves." "Lenny is your grandson in the Navy?" Babs asked as she sniffed behind her mask. "Great-grandson," Theodora corrected. "He and his twin Leo went into the Navy together after they earned their degrees. I made certain my boys would be officers. Lenny even talked to Captain Lansing on the USS Abraham Lincoln into having a cat or three for the ship, and a shipdog. Pets are so good for the mental health of sailors on long deployments. Admiral Lansing, who spends all his time on the USS Gerald Ford, did the same. It was all sent to the place. It was sent to take the place of the Reagan after it was sunk. I am so glad there wasn't a real war." She waved her hand, sending a shower of cat fur from her sleeve, which Babs could see. "They helped with the remodeling of the whole house before they left last time. I love those boys. Their mother thinks she will get to sell my house before I'm even buried, but I'll outlive her. And if I don't, she's in for a little surprise." Theodora leaned forward and refilled Babs' teacup while Babs pushed the giant yellow cat away again. Then Theodora continued, "I'm leaving it to Lenny and Leo, because they are the only one in the families who loves the cats as much as I do. They are the only ones who understand how important they are. I bet Lonnie regrets being a cat hater now." Theodora chuckled malevolently. Shifting uncomfortably, Babs looked away from the strands of cat hair now floating in her teacup. "So, what else do they help with?" "Oh, come and see." Theodora put her teacup down, and several cats began to lick the tea and cream from it as the elderly lady hobbled over to the antique-looking elevator. "Don't be afraid. This is quite modern. Lenny replaced the lift motor and everything when he was home from leave the last time." Hesitantly, Babs stepped into the metal filigree cage. "It's very pretty?" As they went up smoothly, Theodora pointed at the rooms on the second floor. These are where I keep all of my artifacts and research on that cursed Prince Bacre and the worship of Bast and her blessed cats. Have you ever heard of him, dearest? Yes, ma'am. When the Egyptian Antiquities Tour came to Baltimore, the news of his lost city put quite a strain on our resources. Very good. Tell me what you know, Theodora demanded, as she waved her hand around at the third floor. This is the bedroom and the cats' rooms. They like to watch the birds flying to and from the park. The bathroom has a walk-in tub and shower. It is quite nice for my arthritis. That's something my cats can't help with, though they try, bless their hearts. Babs was surprised when they didn't stop, but went all the way to the top. Opening the collapsible door, Theodora stepped out onto the landing. Her dozen cats ran up the stairs, mewling as they rushed out the cat door leading to the roof. We're going out on the roof? Babs sneezed violently several times in a row, but was happy to go outside for the fresh air. Oh, yes, to see the solar panels and the rooftop cistern. My Lenny was always one to be prepared for any disaster. Of course, it was Leo and Aries who carried it up all the stairs. I have 6 months of water stored, and the ability to collect more, and power for as long as I need. My boys take such good care of me. Theodora beamed as she opened the door. Next, Chapter 5.